Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us this evening. This is John. I am the event coordinator here at Murder by the Book in Houston. And just before we get started, just do a general kind of couple store announcements, let everybody know what's going on with us before we get officially started with our authors, give everybody just some time to get the notification that we have gone live. Next week, we have very few virtual events. This is kind of a first for us. We actually have in-store events scheduled next week. Mark Cameron's going to be with us Tuesday. Geneva Rosa is going to be in-store on Wednesday. And we're going to have Taryn Fisher and Colleen Hoover with us on Thursday. So we've got a nice full week. Colleen Hoover will be interviewing Taryn Fisher, but she actually won't be signing. Just Taryn will be. So if you guys check out the store's website, murderbooks.com, you will see that our events are either going to be listed as in-store or virtual. We're going to keep doing both. At some point, we're going to figure out how to live stream these stuff in store too. We just need to figure out what equipment we need and all that stuff to make sure that it works properly. But if anybody is coming through in store on the schedule that you want to see, as we've been telling people, it's kind of imperative that we let publishers know that there is a desire for both. So if you see somebody coming into store that you want to see, please come visit them so that way we can let publishers know that people are still interested in in-person and virtual events too. The one virtual event that we are going to do next week, next Saturday, April 30th, is Independent Bookstore Day. We're going to be celebrating. We've got indie bookstore exclusive merchandise that we'll be selling. We are going to be doing a Murder by the Book Recommends event at 1 o'clock. For those of you who are not familiar with those, it's basically the staff just sitting around the store kind of recommending books. We're going to do it in store, but we're also going to broadcast it live at the same time. It's our guinea pig event to try to see what a hybrid thing will look like. And we figure if we mess it up and you just miss out on us talking, it's not as big a deal as if you miss out on an author that you want to hear. So we hope that you will either come visit us at 1 o'clock in store or visit us here virtually at 1 o'clock online. All of the books that we're talking about are going to be 20% off, and we're going to have them on sale throughout the whole weekend too. So I hope that you guys will come celebrate Independent Bookstore Day with us next Saturday. But I'm going to get us started for tonight. We're so excited to have Sascha Rothchild with us. Her book, Blood Sugar, came out on the 19th, which was this Tuesday. We've got signed book plates. So if you order your copies, I've already dropped a link in the comments where you can order copies. You will get a signed book plate. And we're also happy to be joined by Kelly AuCoin, who's going to be leading the conversation. I'm going to bring him on first. How are you tonight, Kelly?
I'm well. How are you?
Doing well. Thanks so much for doing this for us.
Absolutely. I'm glad was happy to be asked.
Yeah. So Kelly is best known for playing cult favorite Dollar Bill Stearn on Showtime's Billions. And
so you don't watch the show, do you?
No, I'm sorry. I don't have Showtime. And Pastor Tim on FX The Americans. He and Sascha met when she wrote a part for him in her television program, The Bold Type. Generally speaking, when someone offers Kelly a job, he tends to jump at it before the offerer has a chance to change their mind. So there that was. And now Kelly would now do pretty much anything Sascha asked him to do because he thinks she's awesome and he flipping loves this book. In terms of acting, he can currently be seen in Hulu's The Girl from Plainville and AppleTV Plus's WeCrashed, some other TV, The Endgame, Turn, House of Cards, The Good Wife, Gossip Girl, The Sopranos, and many Law and Order of various suffixes. Film includes The Good House, The Post, The Wizard of Lies, Julie and Julia, The Kingdom, All That I Am, which got a South by Southwest Award for Ensemble Acting, some favorite theater, Octavius Caesar and Julius Caesar on Broadway, the 24-hour Plays Broadway, and lots of Off-Broadway shows over the years. He's a former member of the Oregon Shakespeare Festival Acting Company. As I mentioned, he is going to be leading our conversation with Sascha tonight. Let me get her brought out. How are you tonight, Sascha?
I am well, thank you.
Congratulations.
I didn't realize Kelly was on The Good Wife. Now I just want to talk about that. We'll sidebar.
Yeah. You got to talk to Kelly about shortening his bio.
Yeah.
It's like, Jesus.
So as I mentioned, Sascha's debut novel, Blood Sugar, just came out on Tuesday. We've got signed book plates. So she is an Emmy-nominated screenwriter who has written and produced lauded shows such as Glow, The Bold Type, The Babysitters Club, and The Carrie Diaries. In 2015, she was named one of Variety's 10 TV writers to watch. She has written for LA Weekly and Los Angeles Times, Elle, and the Miami Herald, and adapted her article, How to Get Divorced by 30, into both a memoir and a screenplay for Universal Studios. She graduated from the honors program of Boston College summa cum laude with a major in theater and screenwriting. And as I mentioned, Blood Sugar is her debut novel. So while she and Kelly are chatting tonight, if you guys have any questions for them, drop those in the live chat on YouTube or the comments on Facebook, and we will get to those in a bit. But for now, Kelly, I'm going to turn this over to you, and I will see you guys in just a little bit.
Thanks, John. Hey.
Hi, Kelly.
How are you?
I'm good.
I wanted to make it clear to everyone, I love this book so much that I have 2 copies of it. I wonder at this point, so this has been available. Oh, yeah, see, I could tell that was just you moving. There's only one there.
Yeah.
Oh wait, no, there's one in the corner I see in the back.
There is one. Yeah.
All right. You got a few in the household. So this book has been available to the public for how long now?
It's 3 days.
3 days. Okay.
Came out on April 19th was the official pub date. And it's been a very exciting week.
Yeah, I'm actually really curious. Maybe someone in the questions I'd love to know how many people have actually read it already too. You know, people who might be here because they poured through it and want to talk to you about it.
I've gotten a lot of Instagram messages and Twitter messages that people have been up till 4 a.m. and they can't put it down, which is great, which is what I hoped for. I hope to write a bingeable book, just like I write bingeable TV. It hopefully is the goal. So
that's a question. Before we get started, I hope that everyone pours himself a cocktail.
It is Friday night.
It's Friday night,
Totally
and we're talking books. You know, the tradition would be like a snifter, a brandy, or a red wine or something. But I'll accept martinis. But everybody, I hope, will grab a cocktail. What you just said is really interesting to me because one of the things that I remember from when I read your book, and not to brag, but I got an advanced copy a few months ago. But was how I didn't use the term bingeable, but that's exactly what it was. I felt like every end of every chapter was slingshotting me into the next one, and I was up till dawn, literally dawn one morning reading it. Is that, do you think happens? Is that because that's how you have written for so long, writing for TV, or was it something you strove towards, or is it both?
I did make ooh, wait, is there feedback?
I don't hear.
Okay.
No.
Great. I made an effort to do that. I was thought a lot about, I've worked for a lot of Netflix shows, and the goal is always, click next episode. And I thought with novels, if you're in bed reading and you think I'll read a chapter, I'll turn the light out. If I could make the chapters just short enough and just enough cliffhanger at each chapter that the reader will think, oh, I'll just read one more. And then I'll turn the light out. That perhaps I could create what I think of as a bingeable novel. And so that was done on purpose. And I hope that it not everyone has to stay up all night, but I hope it does make people want to find out what is going to happen. Yeah,
totally. And actually, I mean, your first chapter is a page and a half. And this doesn't necessarily speak well of me, but I love books, and there's nothing. This isn't the part that might not speak well of me. That's fine. But I'd say I love all different types of entertainment media. But the best book, the most immersive, all-encompassing, all-inclusive ride I ever go on with a great book is a much deeper, richer, more immersive experience than anything else. A play, piece of music, TV show, movie. But I sometimes have a hard time getting past the first 20 pages or so. And I go through phases, and sometimes all of a sudden I can, and then I read 5 in a row, and then the 6th one, it's like, I can't get past it. And it's not the quality of the book, because I've returned to those time and time again, and actually been able to get through them. But anyway, one of the things that really got to me with yours was that there was never any, I was going to read your book because you're a brilliant writer, but it was so easy to go from one chapter to the next. It was so propulsive. So it was a long-winded way of saying you're really good.
Oh, thank you. And I will say, for those who haven't read it and might want to read it, the first chapter, this is not a spoiler because it is literally in the first page and a half.
Right.
My anti-heroine, Ruby Simon, murders someone when she's 5 years old. So that's her first murder as a child. And so we really start off with, okay, this is who she is, and we're going to hear in her voice her story, and also how she justifies everything she does.
The first two sentences start off with, "The waves weren't that big, but he was only 7." It's so wonderfully ominous, and yet there's a sort of there's a matter of factness that's not. And this doesn't give anything away either, because I think it's in the press stuff that you've spoken about, and also in the first chapter. It's not in a sociopathic way. There's nothing. She's not a sociopath. She just has this way of looking at, from my perspective, just this way of looking at things and assessing them. And there's a dispassionate way she approaches it. This makes sense. This is going to be better for the world, and often for specific people. Did you? Can you speak
she's
to?
Practical. Yeah. She's practical, and I'll say, for those who don't have the book in front of them, the tag, which is also not a spoiler, is she's accused of 4 murders. She's only guilty of 3. So there's a lot of irony. There's a lot of humor, dark humor for sure. But I think that Ruby Simon is someone who's I don't think she's a sociopath. She doesn't think she's a sociopath. She's not running around killing people left and right. There's a real reason for her to kill who she kills. And I hopefully will convince the reader that it was, not the worst idea. And I think a lot of people will relate to her and almost feel there's like a little bit of wish fulfillment of being the kind of woman who can come home from a party and not obsess about, what did I say wrong, or did I wear the wrong shoes, or did I insult that one person? She's somebody who doesn't like ruminate or second guess her decisions. She just makes them. And murder is included in those.
Sure. Yeah. And then, which, oh, at that party, I really wish, did I say something wrong when I murdered that person?
Yeah.
I wonder, did they go out feeling bad about me?
Yeah.
No, that's really interesting, and I've heard you talk also about antiheroes and the role of antiheroes in our culture, and you've brought up a very good point that in general antiheroes are men, or at least the celebrated ones are men. Was that something that you realized you were writing after you started writing it, or was that a fertile topic for you?
It's definitely something I was interested in going into this. I think there are really flawed men that we love, Tony Soprano and Walter White and Michael Corleone, and no matter how bad these men are, we end up hating their wives and girlfriends who want them to be better, and we end up, hating, when he slams the door on her in The Godfather, we're like, yeah, slam it. And it's this strange sort of like, how dare these women want their husbands to not, run around and kill people. And we afford them, they get to do whatever they want because they're charming or smart, or we hear from them directly. And I wanted to create an anti-heroine that is allowed to be flawed and allowed to do bad things, but we hear from her and we understand why she does what she does. And we give her the space that men have to be flawed. And certainly there are anti-heroines. This is not the first book to do that, but it was something very specific that I wanted to do because it is rare.
Yeah. On The Americans, the woman who played Paige Jennings, Holly Taylor, talked about how once her character discovered that her parents were Soviet spies, and she had been raised with no knowledge of this and raised as a normal American teenager, she had a hard time dealing with that, which, to my mind, is normal behavior. But apparently, and she asked a lot of questions. She acted out a little bit. She was angry, and apparently she started getting hate mail, or the modern equivalent of hate mail. And even somebody in an elevator on a press junket cornered her, talking about how much he hated her. I mean, she was 14, 15 years old.
And playing a character.
Playing a character.
Playing a fictional character, yeah.
Playing a kid, playing a character who just discovered that her parents are murdering spies.
Yeah.
And yeah, anyway, so that, but when we talked a lot about the fact that the son he didn't find out, but it would have been an interesting experiment to find out how different it might have been if that character had been a son. Because I do think we're trained, or people are trained through TV to see the supplication or just support. Anyway.
Yeah, no, I think for, so long women are written to be supporting characters for the male lead. And obviously that's changed a lot in the past 10 years. But the other thing that was interesting for me to delve into this is that I think many women are raised with this idea of numbers, of how much are you allowed to weigh? And we all lie about our weight. How old are we allowed to get before we start lying about our age? Because we're not really allowed to age. How many people have we slept with? We all have to lie and keep it a small number, because there's a certain number that puts us over the edge of being, okay or not slutty. Whereas men can, have any number they want. And I think that also goes for serial killers. I think that men serial killers, we just adore Dexter, and I adore Dexter. But we can kill someone once a week and that's fine. And
every episode.
And I wanted to sort of like touch on that. With a woman who's killing people, she has to be very aware that she's not killing too many people, because that would be not ladylike in like a weird way. And I think, that's something I haven't exactly seen before, but I wanted to explore.
Yeah. Oh, that's fascinating. I like the numbers. You're right, because there is obviously she's calculated. She's very smart. She's calculated about it, but not to mean that she's planning how to get. It's not that she's necessarily planning how to get away with the next one. It's not at that, but there is a calculus that she considers, just like what you're talking about, like that. Well, maybe. I don't want to give spoilers, so I'm trying to remember exactly what happened later in the novel, so I don't give things away.
Well, I will say this woman is her husband dies, which we find out very quickly, and she is brought in as a suspect,
right? Because
the spouse is always the first suspect. But the problem is, because she has killed 3 people in her past, those skeletons kind of bubble up, and now she has a lot more to deal with than she thought she would have to deal with, which is sort of the anchor of the novel.
I love my memory is that the sort of, not gimmick, but the way in which you reveal the story of the next person she killed. It's all these flashbacks to her with the detective, who I'm going to play in the movie, by the way. I don't know if you know that yet. He's bald, wears thick specs. And that's a great device. That's the word I was looking for. It's a great device to, because there are these, that's chapter 2. Can I mention something?
Yeah, absolutely. No, okay. the four photographs. I think we are safe to mention chapter 2 for sure. The
photographs, and as soon as the first one is turned over, and she recognizes immediately, 25 years after the fact, she recognizes that kid. And she knows exactly what this person knows. And because she makes that, she has that realization, she's actually sort of able to get ahead of it somewhat and remain, for the most part, somewhat calm as this detective tries to throw her off her game. And that's remarkable how, you're showing us a person who's like, oh, fuck, but is very good at meeting this new, and it's not as if she's used to having being grilled by police officers, but she just has this sort of preternatural calm. That was striking to me.
And she's a therapist, and I think I learned this this phrase that many therapists consider themselves wounded healers. And I loved that and thought she is someone that did a very bad thing and a traumatizing thing as a child and grew up with that, and therefore wanted to delve into why she did that, started going to therapy, wanted to help others with their own wounds. And so she is very good at calmly discussing things, because that's her job, is to calmly discuss other people's issues. So I think that it ties into her ability to sort of maintain composure when being investigated.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. How many people have you killed in your life?
I have killed no people. I've killed 0 people. This is definitely fiction. It is definitely a novel.
See how I slid it in there? I thought maybe.
No, I have killed nobody, and now I can't kill anybody, because then it's like, well, I could say of course I wouldn't kill somebody. I wrote a novel about it, but that's already,
No, see, you should have thought of this. You boxed yourself out, or in, or whichever.
There's a lady now, actually. Anyway, I just saw a news story about a lady who's got in trouble for killing her husband, and she wrote a book about killing her husband. But I don't know enough about the trial to actually comment on it. But I saw a headline.
I vaguely remember hearing a headline on NPR or something like that. Had you ever? This is your first novel, but had you ever? It's not your first book. But had you ever been compelled to write fiction before? I mean, not non-scripted fiction?
Not in this no, actually, I have not. I have never been compelled. I've written personal essays and I wrote a memoir, but a novel always seems so daunting. And I literally, when I had this idea, which I'll tell you about how I had this idea, and then my husband is in real life is a type 1 diabetic, and he can have a very low blood sugar in the middle of the night, which is very dangerous because if he doesn't have sugar, he could die. And it's called dead in bed. It's a real thing that type 1s go through. So he has a continuous glucose monitor, and it beeps very loudly if he's very low. So a few years ago, it started beeping very loudly. It woke me up. I woke him up. He ate sugar. He went back to sleep. But I was up and I was starting to think, what if, because I'm a writer and my brain always goes into plot and story. And I started wondering, well, what if he actually died? And that was very sad. But I immediately went further into like plot. And I thought, what if the police come and they think I killed him? But I didn't kill him. But the spouse is always the first suspect. And then I thought, well, wait, what if I actually had killed people? Now that's coming out because of this thing. And this is a huge mess. And I thought, this is a novel. Like this, this is a novel. And I started writing it the next day. I just woke up and started typing, and I literally Googled how many words is an average novel, because I had no idea. And it's 80,000 is the answer. Just in general, 80,000 is a good amount for a novel.
Right.
And usually, movies, or I write half-hour television or hour television. This is like 6 movie scripts.
That's amazing.
So no, I never thought to write a novel until I had that idea. And I just felt this was the best way to express it.
Right. I was good. There was a different, so maybe this speaks to the writer's brain, because I was following you. I understood everything, and it makes total sense. But I was sort of, I'm with you through a lot of that until you jumped to, you're like, oh yeah, but what if they think I did it and the police come? And I was like, I mean, I could actually see having those thoughts and, those weird sort of grotesque thoughts, ground guignol type feelings and whatnot. But then what you said, where it was like, oh yeah, she's a writer and I'm not, where you were like, what if I had killed other people? So first of all, there's a difference between the writer brain, I think, and the non-writer brain. But also, I was listening. There was something, I don't know if you watched Jerry Seinfeld's Talking with Comedians, Driving Cars and Having Coffee. Mm-hmm. And it's a better title than that, but that's the gist. Yeah. He was talking to, God, I don't remember who it was, but he was just like, number one, can you teach funny? But that wasn't the main thrust. It was like, is there anything Oh, it was about, can you teach funny? And the guy answered no, largely because the brain is different. It's just anything that happens is funny. And he's like, this is what civilians don't understand. It could be awful, and we could be mourning the tragic death of a parent or our child, anything. But the second thought we have is the joke. The joke starts formulating, and it doesn't make us monsters. It just, that's the way our brains work. Do you think that there's something like that? And I know for me as an actor, there are times when I've been outside of my emotions and thinking, oh, that's interesting that I feel that way, or that's how. Do you find that you do that as a writer? Something along those lines?
Yeah, I think, I mean, well, with comedy, and usually I am a comedy writer, so this was a real departure for me, even though there is absolutely some irony and comedy in this novel. But there's that phrase, comedy plus time, or sorry, tragedy plus time equals comedy. But for comedians, it's tragedy plus 2 minutes equals comedy.
Yeah, that's still time.
Yeah, it's just a very short amount of time. But yeah, I am constantly taking moments in my life that anchor sort of a relatability or a real sort of a way to anchor a story in a real emotion, and then twist and turn it and blow it up in a way that is high stakes and plot and story. And so I'm always, my mind is always sort of structuring things like an episode of TV or a feature film. And I sometimes even dream in acts. Like I will have a dream and it'll be the first act and the second act. And the dark night of the soul is when the character has their worst moment. And then they figure it out. And the third act is a resolution. And so my brain is wired like that for sure.
Now I know what's happening when you and I go out for a drink and you're sort of like off like this for a second.
Yeah, I'm completely, yeah. I'm in my writer fantasy world as well. And I think also I'm often trying to take something that's usual and twist it in a new way. And so, often serial killers in real life and also in fiction are very cruel to animals. And that's a big trope when they're young. And I thought, I want my serial killer to love animals and be kind to animals and actually murder a person as a young child rather than murder a puppy. And in a way, sort of really putting a spin on that is that someone we can get behind even more than someone who would murder a puppy. And there's also this great screenwriting book called Save the Cat, where the idea is the hero, although flawed, if you have him save a cat or something in the first 5 minutes, the audience knows to love him and follow him and be with him for his mistakes. So I literally had Ruby save a cat as sort of a little nod to that. But the cat is quite important to story and plot, and the cat is not a frivolous addition. But there were moments where I almost was I was having fun with what has come before it.
Right. We will forgive John Wick every single person he shoots in the head, and they are myriad because he's doing it because his puppy was killed.
Yes. Yes. 10,000 people.
I think literally 10,000 people.
You add all the movies.
That's yeah. So you've been a showrunner on how many shows now? You're working.
I am.
On one now.
The show I'm show running now is my first official showrunner job.
Okay.
I'm running a new show for Netflix, which is a spinoff of really wonderful books written by Jenny Han that are called To All the Boys I've Loved Before, which is a very different. It's a romantic comedy. Soapy and fun, and my sort of more usual TV fare than Blood Sugar is.
Right. I was just wondering about, because you've also been on the writing staffs of shows. What is the difference, or what is maybe one of the more sort of surprising differences about that type of writing versus writing a novel or a play? Because I know you had that in your history as well, but writing a novel. And I have a thought about maybe how show running can maybe be an interesting through line between them or connect those. But anyway, I'm just wondering if can you talk about a fundamental difference with those types of writing?
One fundamental difference is television writing is very collaborative. And even as a showrunner, you have a writer's room, you're working together, you're building story, you're pitching stories, you're telling each other why it's, but what not, not that hot air balloon, but what about this? And it's a real collaborative experience. And then you go off and you write your episodes, but then you come together again and make sure those episodes tonally fit with the whole season and the whole series. Whereas the novel, you are home. I mean, you are alone with your words and your computer. And then if you get it published, which is amazing, you have an editor who helps bring out the absolute best in you. If you're lucky, I had an amazing editor who really got my voice and just helped me structure a little more and hone a little more. But it's really just you. And it's a very different lifestyle in terms of sitting home alone in your sweatpants versus, in a room of writers where you talk mostly about what you're going to order for lunch. And it's a very different vibe.
Is that just sort of quick? I'm curious about the show you're working on now, and others that you might know anecdotally from other people about anecdotally. Are they getting back to in-person writing rooms, or are they mainly Zoom rooms right now?
Some shows are back in person. Most shows are still Zoom, and I think Zoom absolutely works. I've now done 2 shows over Zoom, 2 writers' rooms over Zoom, but I miss the in-person. I think that there's a bonding moment. I think it's nice to sit in a room with other humans, and you end up having those moments where you talk about your life and you get to know each other, and story always comes from those moments as well. So I hope that we can get back to in-person in the next year. That would be my hope. Also, Zoom, here's a weird thing. No one knows how tall anyone is over Zoom, which, you don't think about, but it's weird. It's a weird thing. And then you meet the person and you're like, oh, you're really tall, or you're not, you're my height, or you don't know.
That is an interesting thing. Yeah. I still lament, and things were trending this way anyway, but I still lament the loss of the audition room. And there's even for TV and film, and I know, and they're capturing you on camera. So what's going to the producers and to the people who make decisions, who are sometimes not in the room, is still that same thing that we're providing them with self-tapes. But there's something liminal and that is important, I think, to a performance, walking through a door from the waiting room into that space that sort of grounds you immediately. And you really can do a good job in 1 or 2 takes. Whereas with self-tapes, it's almost like you're taking, maybe it's partially because you can, so you do, but you feel like you need 7 or 8 takes and all that bullshit.
Yeah, and then you obsess about what to send in.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I wonder, a number of people on the other end of people in your position or similar positions feel completely the opposite. I wonder if what do you think about that type of audition self-tapes, and why?
I actually love self-tapes because I feel like you're going to see the actor on a screen in a box. And so seeing the actor in a screen on a box from the get-go is very clear. It's very clear. Not is the actor charming in the room or has a je ne sais quoi when they walk in, but are they exactly what you need in the box to play that role? So I think it's very helpful, but I totally understand why it's terrible for some actors who have a very different process. However, on Zoom, I have been very, I've made sure to have talks with actors that we want callbacks for, or I want to call back with, to get a sense of personality, a sense of vibe. And it might not be as much as you could in a room with somebody, but at least it's something. It's not just a tape. And to work with actors with a director that you have attached, so you can get a little bit of a vibe of how do they take notes, and or is this a good personality fit? So I try and do all that and get to know the actor, but I do find just seeing them in the screen is it works.
Fine. It's also probably cheaper, and because you don't have to fly everywhere, and you could literally, theoretically, see anyone from anywhere in the world.
Yeah, you can do international castings. Also, chemistry reads. I mean, not that this has just now become like a murder by the book acting seminar, but maybe people are interested. Chemistry reads are really interesting over Zoom, because how do you even tell if there's chemistry between two actors in two different boxes? But somehow we're doing it.
Have you found? Okay, yeah, and we can leave this topic in a second. But I'm curious, like, have you found there are people who really do somehow create chemistry on Zoom?
Yeah, I have seen that it's clearly something or not something. So I do think, though, for chemistry reads, I welcome the day that we can fly people in person again and have people on screen together.
Sure. Yeah. No, that makes sense.
It does. But it does work.
Yeah. I have. So I'm going to go back to the book first. I think it's fascinating I think it's fascinating, your history and what brought you to writing books, and with all the other things you've done that are so interesting. So I'm going to get back to that too. But about Blood Sugar, so you've said that when you thought of this story, you were like, this is a novel, period. Are you like, Ben Mesrick, the writer Ben Mesrick, he wrote, I can't remember any of his titles right now, but he wrote, I think his first big book was about these kids who figured out how to beat the casino at 21, whatever. And that was turned into a movie.
Yeah.
And he's like, every book I write, nonfiction or fiction, I am already thinking about the adaptation. Did you think that way with this book? And did you think that way about how to get away with murder?
How to get divorced by 30. I did not think that way with How to Get Divorced by 30, which was a great, wonderful surprise when that call came in that I had that was an article at first. It was an article, and then I had a book deal and a movie deal in 1 week, which changed the course of my career. But I think because I've been writing television for the past 15 years, for Blood Sugar, I wrote it from the eye of a television writer, where I could see the scenes and I could see the chapters as scenes and the cliffhangers as episode endings. But I really wanted to live in the form of the novel and live in the world of, I can use many words and I can explore a little bit more, and there's more room. And so I was not automatically picturing it as a series. I think it'd be great to do a series or a film at some point when the right things connect. But I was really just writing the novel, which was wonderful. And it was like a different experience. And the other thing about, TV writing, movie writing is, every word is expensive. Like you say, a man walks down a windy street, you have to pay for the wind machines. You have to have someone there to fix the hair to make it windy. You have a jacket flapping. You have a tree, someone shaking. And then you realize, can the guy just pretend to be cold without the wind? Can we save all that time and money? Whereas with a book, obviously you can say windy and it doesn't cost anything. So there's a way to write with adjectives that was so freeing for me with the novel. You can have all the wind I wanted.
All the wind you want. But that's fascinating. And I like the way that's a great description. Like, you can write all the adjectives you want. You don't have to think about cost. That's really cool. When you were there, and I don't even know if this is something that you do writing for TV or film either, but are there novelists that you, when you decided to write this, after Googling how many words you thought it might have to be, were there novelists that did you go back to read some of your favorites, or did you explore people in the writers in the thriller genre? Did you do any research like that, just in terms of like style, immerse in the style?
I tried to stay away from reading thrillers because I didn't want to accidentally like inception an idea that wasn't truly mine.
Yeah.
Of course, many people have similar ideas, but I didn't want to accidentally read something and have a kernel become something that I thought that I created. So I really stayed away from thrillers the entire like 2 years that I was working on this. I did, though, reread Crime and Punishment, which was one of my favorite books in college. And I felt very much drawn to it because of the theme of guilt and what it means to be a human. And he redeems himself by feeling guilty. And I've always thought, but what if not? What if you could not feel guilty, which is very much what Blood Sugar is about. Is guilt a helpful emotion at all? I don't know. I don't know that it is. Ruby Simon certainly doesn't think it is. And the other book that affected me a lot the past 5 years as I wrote was this book called Circe, which Madeline Miller took this sort of lesser known Greek goddess who's just been maligned through thousands of years of Greek mythology as this evil witch. And she wrote this incredible novel from Circe's perspective of like what really happened, why she got banished, why she turns men into pigs, why she's a witch in the first place. And I thought, oh my God, to write an anti-heroine from her voice. And I just fell in love with Circe. And that really like inspired me a lot to keep this, to keep writing this.
Yeah. That book is next to I have a stack of books. It's next to my bed. Carolyn, my wife, read it probably 3-4 years ago now and said it's great. So I will get to that too.
I like that you read Blood Sugar first.
Oh yeah. Come on. But also my big takeaway then is that Blood Sugar is your response to Crime and Punishment.
It is. And not to, I don't want to say that I'm at all comparing myself to one of the great novels of the history of the world. I am not saying that, but in my own small way, it is my response to what we as humans feel about guilt.
Yeah. I don't know why I jumped to this because it's not exactly a perfect connection, but Liz Phair, when she wrote Exile in Guyville, it was a song for song response to Exile on Main Street by the Rolling Stones, and I always loved that. Yeah. I love knowing what. It's not so hers is that's source material. Yours wasn't necessarily source material in the same way, but it's still it's always fascinating to see what people are responding to, whether to whatever exact degree. No, that's fascinating. What would you say? So Crime and Punishment would be the type of answer some people might give to the question I'm about to ask you. Are there books that you have? You love books. I know you love to read.
I love books, yes.
Are there books that you have really wanted to read but faked reading because you just couldn't get through them? Or
I have not faked it. I am not a lady who fakes things, and I will admit that I could never get through Don Quixote.
Okay.
I could never get through Vanity Fair. There are some incredible books that I just couldn't get through, and I'll try every few years. But I won't pretend. I don't want to. I can admit that, maybe I'm just not getting it, or I'm not smart enough, or it's not the right time in my life. But those are I feel like two really major classics that I have not finished. Oh, Moby Dick. Could never get through Moby Dick, ever.
I was just going to say Moby Dick. Carolyn, again, my wife's much smarter than I am, and more disciplined than I am, but she loves Moby Dick. And every once in a while I start it and I get through 4 pages.
Yeah.
The other two, Gravity's Rainbow, which I did tell one person I had read, and I felt so bad about it afterwards. They started to ask me questions about certain things. I was like, oh, I gotta get an Infinite Jest, which is sort of everybody's joke that remains, you put it, but that's something you put in the back of a Zoom meeting. So people think you read Infinite Jest.
Look really, yeah. It's true, that book.
Do you have, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I can't believe it's 5:44 and we have to ask John for questions.
Oh my goodness. Okay, John, We have questions.
Yes. So did you have one that you were about to ask before I popped in, Kelly?
I was just going to ask about books that maybe have changed, like particularly changed your life besides reading. But that's that might be a more open-ended question. So either you could choose.
I would say there are two books as a young teen that I read that changed my life in very different ways, and I think it's very funny to pair them together because it sort of makes up who I am. And that's Emma by Jane Austen.
Okay.
I think it's timeless. She is so flawed and so wonderful and so relatable. And Interview with a Vampire by Anne Rice, because it is so fantasy, wish fulfillment-y, scary, sexy, and just like sort of daring, especially to read it as like a 12, 13-year-old. It seemed very daring. And I wanted to be as bold as Lestat and as meddling as Emma. So those are sort of my two heroes.
Did you and sorry, follow up. Sorry, John. Did you are there books that you reread? Did you reread Interview with a Vampire or Emma at different ages?
Yeah, I have reread them, and I think because I was so imprinted with them that nothing has changed for me.
Interesting.
I think had I stumbled upon Interview with a Vampire as a 35-year-old, I might have felt differently, but because I will always be that 12-year-old girl reading it, it's the same.
I was just going to say parenthetically, so the book Winter's Tale by Mark Helprin. Both my wife and I read that about 6 months before we moved to New York from Los Angeles. And then we both read it again after we'd lived here for about 15 years. And it was really fascinating how differently it hit. But anyway, that's a wonderful thing. Anyway, John.
As I say, I recently, right after Anne Rice died, I realized I'd never read the Mayfair Witches book. So I went back to try to read the first one. And same thing, I read Interview with the Vampire and that whole series, like when I was, 15, 16. I think that's like the perfect time because now I was like, oh, I don't know that I'm in the headspace to enjoy like a new Anne Rice world like I would have been like back then.
Yeah. No, I agree. Bless you.
Excuse me. Okay. So Warren wants to know, Sascha, do you have a sequel planned?
I do have a sequel. If people would like to read a sequel, I know exactly what Ruby Simon will be doing next and where and with whom and how. And so it's all in my brain and some of it's written down.
Nice. So you touched on the fact that writing for TV is so different because you get like the writer's room and you have like, you're able to bounce ideas off of each other. So for this one, when you're sitting down for the book, did you like do an outline? So basically the plot, are you a plotter or a pantser when you were writing on this one?
So for TV, you have to be incredibly, you submit, you have an outline, it's like, where is every scene? What location are we on set? Are we, it's very sort of organized. Because this was such a departure for me, I wanted to just kind of see how it went. So I knew exactly who Ruby was, how it was going to start, how it was going to end, and some sort of major tent poles within. Mm-hmm. But other than that, it's so cheesy, but I just kind of sat down and let her tell me what was going to happen next.
Awesome.
And just wrote.
And do you think that the novel writing process has changed the way that you write for TV at all?
I think it's given me a deeper sense of character and backstory. Even if we never see that backstory, I will know what it is. And I've always tried to be aware of that with my TV characters, but I think it's like honed that even more.
I have a follow-up on that. So one of the things I think I remember you telling me before, and this sort of touches on what you were saying about collaborative writing versus sitting and writing a novel by yourself. Is it the normal structure that different people in the writer's room have different characters that they're sort of in charge of? You all have the story that you work on together, but that you have this person or this person, and like the major arc of different characters.
No, it is not divided by character. It is everyone's job to write all the characters, and then it is the showrunner's job to smooth everything out so everything feels very consistent.
Interesting.
So yeah, it's very rare for someone to kind of step into just write for one character.
Right.
So you mentioned when you started working on this, you kind of stopped reading thrillers, so you didn't like it. So now that you are done with this one, are you
I'm not yet. I'm very, I'm still sort of like, no, the answer is no. I have a stack of things to read and I'm not yet there. So, but I'm excited to dive into all the amazing books that have come out this year.
Were you a big thriller reader?
I don't know. I mean, definitely enjoy thrillers. I don't know that I'm like a big, I read a lot of, I read a little of a lot of genres. So I would say I'm not, there's certain people, and I've learned this, and this is amazing. There's certain fans of thrillers that are absolutely like thriller fans. And interestingly, there's been a lot of debate about whether Blood Sugar is in fact a thriller, which I think is interesting because this is something that you have to kind of put your book in a section for the bookstore, but it's not scientific. And some people have referred to it as a domestic thriller. Some people have said it's a contemporary novel and not a thriller. Other people are like, it's absolutely a thriller. I love this debate. I think if people are reading it and arguing about it, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's always interesting to see how much a genre classification comes down to the marketing plan. There is an author, Alex Grecian, who writes these really great historical mysteries, but to him, he was writing horror novels. So it's just interesting that like marketing wise, they got put in, they could easily go either way, but marketing wise, they got put in the mystery slot instead of the horror slot. So it's always interesting to see kind of where that falls. And a lot of times, like I said, it just comes down to kind of the marketing plan.
Yeah, where it ends up. But I'm very happy with any of it. Any being in a bookstore anywhere, put me on any shelf.
Yeah. How about you, Kelly? Are you a big thriller reader?
My dad is a big thriller reader. I vacillate. It has to be just something that grabs me because of that thing. I don't know if it's because I go through phases where I'm reading scripts and memorizing lines for auditions, that sometimes I don't have the bandwidth to get past the first 30, 40 pages. So it's just something that grabs me, is what Colin McCann has often been a writer that sort of launches me into something else. Let the Great World Spin was one of those that sort of broke my fallow period, and then another one, Transatlantic. So it just has to be something that grabs me, and it's usually something my wife has recommended.
I do. I'm a huge fan of Carolyn Kepnes's You. I love that series. Gone Girl. I can't believe that it's basically the 10-year anniversary.
Wow.
Girl with a Dragon Tattoo. I guess that would be considered a thriller, but that series was incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. Carolyn was very into that one too. What did you think of the adaptations, of the film adaptations of those?
I never saw them.
Really?
Yeah.
And with the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, the first one, you've got two to choose from.
I never saw either. I never saw them.
Interesting. Because I loved them, and I'd be curious, as someone who read, and I did not read them first, I'd be curious to know what your thoughts would be. Movie night.
So, Sascha, what's something that surprised you the most about the book publishing world?
How nice everyone is. Just a really different vibe with editors and publishers and marketing people at Putnam. And there's just this like warmth and this real like just camaraderie. And it doesn't feel so, there's something, I love TV and I love LA and I love Hollywood, but there's something that's very nerve-wracking about the whole thing all the time. And I didn't feel that way with the publishing experience. I felt like there were people were sort of treating me like an artist, and like maybe I had feelings, versus like, where is it? We're over budget. Where's, it sort of was just a very different feeling.
Awesome. And then, so one of the this always feels weird saying, one of the positive things that's come out of the pandemic is that we're able to do these virtual events and we can do pairings like we would potentially never get to be able to have the two of you together in the store being able to talk. So it's great. It's great to do this. But did you actually get to do an actual physical in-store signing for the book, or you do have one planned?
I did one in Los Angeles on the 19th
Nice.
at Book Soup, which was fabulous. It was such fun. It was really nice to just see humans and sign books, and then that's it. That was it for in person.
Yeah.
Wow.
So luckily your book came out this time, because like there are so many authors that like their books came out last year or 2020 that they just haven't gotten to have that like physical in-store experience. So I'm glad that you actually got to host, because these are fantastic, but there's nothing like being in a room full of readers and getting to chat and then sign books and stuff like that. Perfect. So I think that is going to about do it for us for this evening. But before we go, to recap for anyone who might have tuned in late, we've been chatting with Sascha Rothchild, whose book Blood Sugar just came out on Tuesday. We do have signed bookplates. So if you want a signed bookplate copy, you can order those from murderbooks.com. I've dropped a link in the comments, and we've been chatting with Kelly AuCoin, who's been kind enough to lead the discussion for us tonight. If you missed any part of our chat, once we are done, Facebook and YouTube will archive it, so you'll be able to rewatch in case you missed it. And while you're puttering around there, make sure you check out all of the other virtual events that we have been doing over the last couple of years. Pretty much if there's a mystery author who's released something in the last 2 years, we have probably chatted with them. Sascha, again, congratulations on the debut novel. We're so excited to get to celebrate this with you. And Kelly, thanks again for leading this conversation with us tonight.
Thanks.
Thank you, everybody. Thank
Y'all
you.
have a good night. Take care.
Bye.